Home and Away Spoilers Irene makes a rocky return to Summer Bay. Fan rejoice Irene is back. But she's not who she used to be. This week on Home and Away in Australia, Irene finally returns to Summer Bay after months away. But it's clear she's not comfortable being back home. As Home and Away fans worldwide react to the bombshell news that Lynne McGranger will be bowing out of the show later this year, Irene is set to return to Australian screens this week for what we now know will be her final months in Summer Bay. Irene was last seen in August, when the recovering alcoholic headed off to rehab after falling off the wagon. It had been 9 years since Irene had relapsed, and came after Irene learned that she was being conned by new friend Bronte. Irene had met a supposedly ill Bronte whilst having her annual checkup in the city, and after offering her some time in Summer Bay to recuperate, was upset to learn that her condition was now terminal. It wasn't long before Bronte dropped hints about an experimental clinical trial in Canada that could help her. But of course the fees were hefty. Taking the bait, Irene rallied round and a fundraiser was launched, aiming to raise $100. Housemate and nurse Dana was dubious of Bronte's claims, but found herself criticized by all those around her as she tried to voice her suspicions. By the time Dana was finally able to find proof of Bronte's lies, which led to her being kidnapped and held in a shipping container out in the bush, both Irene and Leah had pledged to put forward $25 each in addition to everyone else's donations. Although everyone's monies were returned, and Bronte was arrested after John and Xander came to Dana's rescue, Irene was left feeling guilty over putting her friends in danger, both physically and financially. Bronte's parting words that she just needed a stupid old woman gullible enough to believe her were particularly cutting for Irene, and within a couple of weeks she had resorted to drink. It didn't take long before John found Irene crying over a broken bottle of whiskey. But despite her promise to attend meetings, she instead decided to declare to a shocked Leah and Marilyn that she was no longer going to deny herself alcohol, feeling that she had it under control. This was clearly not the case, however, with Irene turning up to work drunk. And things finally came to a head when Irene fell down the stairs. After Bree caught Irene with a hip flask in hospital, Irene agreed that she needed help, and putting aside her differences with John, who promised to stand by her, she headed off to rehab. In some respects, looking back over the years and the times she has fallen off the wagon, this one is the worst, Lynne tells TV Week. The stakes were much higher because she was encouraged to go away to a facility. Next week, John and Leah take a trip to visit Irene at the rehab facility. Whilst the pair are delighted to be finally reunited with Irene, it's all too clear that she isn't feeling the same way, acting quite distant towards her closest friends. Irene has become very comfortable in rehab. Lynne continues. She enjoys the routine. She's not quite ready to deal with the outside world. John and Leah bring Irene up to speed on what has been happening back in Summer Bay. But when they ask whether she will be attending housemate Harper's upcoming wedding to Tane, Irene avoids answering the question. Whilst Irene is understandably hesitant on leaving the safe bubble of rehab, John and Leah can't help but feel she's holding back something, a secret that's much bigger. John eventually does convince Irene to return home to Summer Bay, but her loved ones can see a distinct change in her. She's certainly not the Irene they know and love from before her relapse. As Alf and Marilyn welcome Irene back at the diner, she begins to feel smothered by all the attention, and quite brusquely tells her friends so, as she reminds them that this is her recovery and she'll go about it in whichever way suits her. That evening, as Irene sits alone back at the beach house, will she be tempted to relapse again? Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more movie spoilers next week. Goodbye and see you again.